What would you do if a billionaire publicly disrespected you in front of the world? Watch how one woman's bold decision turned a $2 billion deal upside down and changed the business world forever. It was supposed to be a day of celebration, a day when dreams would come true. The grand conference room buzzed with excitement as the world's top investors gathered to witness the signing of a historic deal. At the center of it all was billionaire investor Richard Langston, a man known for his sharp business acumen and, unfortunately, his even sharper ego. Across the table sat Maya Johnson, a self-made entrepreneur and the CEO of a rapidly growing tech company. She was there to finalize a $2 billion investment that would change her company's future forever. The room was filled with the soft hum of conversation, the clinking of coffee cups, and the rustle of expensive suits. Maya's team, a diverse group of talented professionals, sat at one end of the polished mahogany table, their faces a mix of nerves and excitement. On the other side, Richard's entourage, lawyers, advisors, and assistants, waited for their boss to make his grand entrance. The air was thick with anticipation. This was more than just a business deal. It was a moment that could launch Maya's company into the stratosphere. Maya herself was a picture of calm confidence. She had worked tirelessly for years, overcoming countless obstacles to bring her vision to life. Her company had started in a tiny apartment, fueled by late nights, big dreams, and an unshakable belief in her mission. Now she was on the verge of joining the ranks of the world's most influential entrepreneurs. The $2 billion investment from Richard Langston would not only secure her company's future, but also send a powerful message to the industry. Innovation and determination could break any barrier. As the clock struck 10, the doors swung open and Richard Langston strode in, flanked by his advisors. He was every bit the billionaire, tall, impeccably dressed, and exuding an air of authority that seemed to fill the room. Conversations hushed as all eyes turned to him. Richard was known for his ruthless negotiating style and his ability to spot a winning opportunity from a mile away. But he was also infamous for his arrogance and lack of patience for those he deemed beneath him. Maya stood up, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and nerves. She smoothed her blazer, took a deep breath, and walked confidently toward Richard. With a warm, genuine smile, she extended her hand in greeting. A simple gesture of respect and professionalism. What happened next would shock everyone in the room, and soon the entire business world. Richard glanced at Maya's outstretched hand, his expression unreadable. For a brief moment, there was a flicker of something in his eyes, surprise perhaps or annoyance. Then, with a dismissive wave, he turned away from her and addressed his team instead. "I don't shake hands with staff," he said loudly, his voice echoing off the marble walls. The words hung in the air like a dark cloud. The room fell silent. Maya's team looked at her in disbelief, their excitement instantly replaced by shock and embarrassment. Even Richard's own advisors shifted uncomfortably in their seats, unsure of how to react to their boss's blatant disrespect. Maya's hand remained suspended in the air for a moment longer before she slowly lowered it, her smile fading but her composure intact. Inside, she felt a surge of anger and humiliation, but she refused to let it show. She reminded herself of everything she had accomplished, of the battles she had fought to get to this very moment. She was not staff. She was the founder, the visionary, the leader who had built her company from nothing. Richard, oblivious to the impact of his words, continued with the meeting as if nothing had happened. He spoke over Maya, dismissed her ideas, and made it clear he saw her as little more than a formality in the deal. But Maya listened carefully, her mind racing. She realized that this was more than just a business transaction. It was a test of her values and her self-worth. As the meeting dragged on, Maya weighed her options. The $2 billion investment was tempting, but at what cost? Was she willing to compromise her dignity and the respect of her team for the sake of a deal? The answer became clearer with every passing minute. By the end of the meeting, Maya had made her decision. She stood up, her voice steady and strong, and addressed the room. "Respect is the foundation of every great partnership," she said, her eyes locked on Richard. "And I will not do business with anyone who cannot see my worth." With that, she gathered her things and walked out, leaving the stunned room behind. The $2 billion deal was off the table, but Maya's integrity was intact, and her story was just beginning. Richard glanced at Maya's outstretched hand. then looked her up and down with a cold, dismissive stare. Without hesitation, he turned away and said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "I don't shake hands with staff." The room fell silent. Maya's team exchanged nervous glances, and even Richard's own advisors looked uncomfortable. For a moment Maya stood frozen, her hand still in the air. The words echoed in her mind, each syllable a sharp reminder of the prejudice and arrogance she had faced so many times before. She could feel the eyes of everyone in the room on her, waiting to see how she would react. The sting of humiliation was real, but Maya was no stranger to adversity. She had built her company from nothing, overcoming obstacles that would have made most people quit. She had faced rejection, skepticism, and even outright hostility, but she had never let it define her. Slowly, Maya lowered her hand, her movements deliberate and graceful. She straightened her shoulders and lifted her chin, refusing to let Richard's insult diminish her. Inside, her heart pounded with a mix of anger and resolve, but on the outside she remained calm and composed. She glanced at her team, offering them a reassuring smile. They looked back at her with admiration, drawing strength from her poise. Richard, meanwhile, seemed oblivious to the discomfort he had caused. He turned his attention to his advisors, discussing the details of the deal as if nothing had happened. His voice was loud and authoritative, filling the room with an air of superiority. He didn't bother to look at Maya again, as if she were invisible, as if her presence was nothing more than a formality. But Maya was not invisible. She was the founder, the visionary, the leader who had poured her heart and soul into her company. She remembered the long nights spent working on her laptop at the kitchen table, the sacrifices she had made, and the countless times she had been told she would never succeed. She remembered the faces of her team, the people who had believed in her when no one else would. She remembered her family, her community, and everyone who had ever doubted her. As the meeting continued, Maya listened carefully to every word. She watched Richard's body language, noting the way he dismissed her ideas and interrupted her when she spoke. She saw the way he leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, a smug smile on his face. He was used to getting his way, used to people bending over backward to please him. But Maya was different. She had learned long ago that respect was not something you could demand, it was something you earned. The more Richard talked, the more Maya realized that this deal was about more than just money. It was about values, about integrity, about standing up for herself and her team. She thought about the message she would be sending if she allowed Richard's behavior to go unchallenged. She thought about the young women and men who looked up to her, who saw her as a role model. She thought about the future she wanted to create, not just for her company, but for everyone who believed in the power of dreams. Maya's mind raced as she weighed her options. She could swallow her pride, sign the deal, and walk away with the funding her company needed. Or she could take a stand, risk everything, and show the world that dignity was worth more than any amount of money. The choice was clear. As the meeting drew to a close, Richard pushed the contract across the table, barely glancing at Maya. "Let's get this over with," he said, his tone impatient. Maya looked at the contract, then back at Richard. She took a deep breath, her voice steady and unwavering. "Before we sign anything, I want to make one thing clear," she said, her eyes locked on his. "I am not staff. I am the founder and CEO of this company. I built this from the ground up, and I will not allow anyone to disrespect me or my team." The room was silent once again, but this time the energy had shifted. Maya's words hung in the air, powerful and undeniable. Richard looked at her, surprised by her boldness. For the first time he seemed unsure of himself. Maya stood up, gathering her things. "If respect is not part of this partnership, then neither am I," she said. With that, she walked out of the room, her head held high. The deal was off, but Maya had proven something far more important: that true leaders never compromise their values, no matter the cost. As the meeting continued, Richard's arrogance only grew. He dominated the conversation, speaking over Maya at every opportunity. Whenever she tried to present her ideas or clarify a point, he would interrupt, barely glancing in her direction. It was as if he had already decided that her input was irrelevant, that her presence was simply a formality required to finalize the deal. The rest of the room watched in uncomfortable silence, some exchanging uneasy glances, others pretending to be absorbed in their notes. Maya's team, who had worked so hard to reach this moment, sat quietly, their excitement from earlier now replaced by a sense of unease. Despite the disrespect, Maya remained composed. She listened carefully, her face calm and unreadable, but inside she was taking mental notes of every slight, every dismissive gesture, every time Richard cut her off or ignored her contributions. She could feel the weight of her team's eyes on her, silently urging her to stand strong. She knew that how she handled this moment would set the tone not just for this deal, but for the future of her company and everyone who looked up to her. Richard, meanwhile, seemed to relish his position of power. He leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, a smug smile playing on his lips as he outlined his vision for the partnership. He spoke as if Maya's company was already his, as if her years of hard work and sacrifice were nothing more than a stepping stone for his next big investment. He made it clear that he expected things to be done his way, on his terms, with little regard for the people who had built the company from the ground up. As the hours dragged on, Maya's resolve only grew stronger. She thought about the journey that had brought her here. The late nights, the setbacks, the moments when giving up seemed easier than pushing forward. She remembered the promises she had made to herself and her team, to always lead with integrity, to never compromise her values for the sake of profit, and to demand respect in every room she entered. She realized that this deal, as lucrative as it was, came with a price she was not willing to pay. Finally, the moment arrived. The final agreement was placed on the table, the pens were ready, and all eyes turned to Maya. Richard looked impatient, tapping his fingers on the table as if he couldn't wait to move on to his next meeting. The room was tense, the air thick with anticipation. Maya stood up, her movements deliberate and confident. She looked around the room, making eye contact with each person present, before turning her gaze to Richard. Her voice when she spoke was calm but commanding, cutting through the tension like a knife. "Before we proceed, I'd like to say a few words," she began. The room fell silent, everyone sensing that something important was about to happen. Respect is the foundation of every great partnership. Today, I was reminded that no amount of money can buy dignity or integrity. She paused, letting her words sink in. The silence was deafening. Richard shifted in his seat, clearly caught off guard by her boldness. Maya continued, her voice unwavering. "I came here today as the CEO of my company, not as your staff. I have poured my heart and soul into building this business, and I will not do business with anyone who cannot see my worth." She turned to her team, offering them a reassuring smile, then looked back at Richard, meeting his eyes with unwavering confidence. "This deal is not just about numbers on a page. It's about values, about partnership, about mutual respect. And if those things are not present, then no amount of money is worth it." With that, Maya picked up the unsigned contract, closed her briefcase, and gathered her things. The room was stunned into silence. Richard stared at her, speechless for the first time that day. Maya's team watched her with pride, inspired by her courage and integrity. Without another word, Maya walked out of the room, her head held high. The $2 billion deal was off the table, but she had gained something far more valuable. The respect of her team, the admiration of her peers, and the knowledge that she had stayed true to herself. As the doors closed behind her, Maya knew that she had made the right decision. She had proven that dignity and self-worth could never be bought or sold, and that true leadership meant standing up for what you believe in, no matter the cost. News of the incident spread like wildfire. Within hours, the story had leapt from the boardroom to the world, igniting a conversation that reached far beyond the business community. Social media platforms were ablaze with support for Maya. People from all walks of life, entrepreneurs, students, activists, and professionals, shared the story, adding their own voices to the growing chorus. Hashtags like #RespectMatters, #KnowYourWorth, and #StandWithMaya began trending worldwide, uniting people across continents in a powerful show of solidarity. The video clip of the moment, Maya's poised response to Richard's public insult, circulated rapidly. It was replayed on news channels, dissected in think pieces, and celebrated in motivational posts. Maya's calm dignity in the face of disrespect became a symbol of strength, especially for those who had ever felt overlooked or undervalued in their own workplaces. People saw themselves in her, and her refusal to compromise her self-worth resonated deeply. Business leaders and celebrities joined the conversation, many of them sharing their own experiences with disrespect and discrimination. Some wrote open letters praising Maya's courage, while others posted videos encouraging their followers to always stand up for themselves, no matter the stakes. Influential figures in the tech industry, where Maya had made her mark, spoke out about the importance of diversity, inclusion, and respect in leadership. They pointed to Maya's story as a turning point, a reminder that the old ways of doing business, where arrogance and entitlement went unchecked, were no longer acceptable. Meanwhile, Richard found himself at the center of a storm he had never anticipated. The same media outlets that had once celebrated his business acumen now scrutinized his every move. Stories of his arrogance and lack of respect for others resurfaced, painting a picture of a man who had built his empire on intimidation and disregard for those he considered beneath him. Former employees and business partners came forward with their own accounts, describing similar incidents where Richard had belittled or dismissed them. Investors, always sensitive to public perception, began to question Richard's leadership. Some quietly pulled their funding from his ventures, unwilling to be associated with the growing backlash. Others demanded changes in his company's culture, insisting on new policies to ensure respect and equality in the workplace. The board of directors called emergency meetings, worried about the long-term impact on the company's reputation and bottom line. Richard, once untouchable, now faced the very real possibility of losing everything he had worked for. Not because of a bad investment, but because of a moment of arrogance and disrespect. While Richard's world seemed to unravel, Maya's company experienced a surge of support, unlike anything they had ever seen. The outpouring of encouragement was overwhelming. Emails, letters, and messages poured in from people who wanted to thank Maya for her bravery. Many shared their own stories of standing up to disrespectful bosses or walking away from toxic environments. Maya's story gave them hope and reminded them that they, too, deserved to be treated with dignity. New investors lined up, eager to back a leader who valued respect and integrity above all else. Venture capitalists who had previously overlooked Maya's company now saw its true potential. Not just as a business, but as a movement. They recognized that Maya's values were not a liability, but a strength. She had proven that leadership was about more than just profits. It was about character, vision, and the courage to do what was right. Within weeks, Maya secured even better deals on her own terms. She negotiated partnerships with investors who shared her values and respected her leadership. The new funding allowed her company to expand, hire more diverse talent, and launch innovative projects that set new standards in the industry. Maya's team, inspired by her example, worked harder than ever, proud to be part of a company that stood for something greater than just financial success. Maya herself became a sought-after speaker, invited to conferences and events around the world to share her story. She used her platform to advocate for respect, equality, and integrity in business, encouraging others to never settle for less than they deserved. Her story became a case study in business schools, a lesson in the power of self-respect, and the importance of standing up for what is right. In the end, Maya's decision to walk away from the $2 billion deal did more than protect her dignity. It changed the conversation about leadership and respect in the business world. And as her company continued to thrive, Maya proved that true success is built not just on deals and dollars, but on the unshakable foundation of integrity. Maya's story quickly became more than just a headline. It became a powerful lesson for the business world and beyond. What had started as a simple handshake, or rather the refusal of one, turned into a global conversation about respect, equality, and the true meaning of leadership. People everywhere began to see that Maya's experience was not just about a single moment of disrespect, but about the everyday choices we all face when it comes to standing up for ourselves and others. In boardrooms, classrooms, and living rooms around the world, Maya's story was retold and discussed. It wasn't just about a billionaire's arrogance or a missed business opportunity. It was about the courage to walk away from something that didn't align with your values, no matter how tempting the reward. Maya's decision to leave the $2 billion deal on the table sent a clear message. No amount of money is worth sacrificing your dignity. Business leaders took note. Many began to reflect on their own practices and the cultures they were creating within their organizations. Some realized that they, too, had overlooked the importance of respect in the pursuit of profit. Others saw Maya's story as a wake-up call, A reminder that true leaders lift others up, rather than tear them down. Workshops and seminars on workplace respect and inclusive leadership saw a surge in attendance. Companies started to reevaluate their values, making sure that respect and equality were not just words on a wall, but principles that guided every decision. For aspiring entrepreneurs, Maya became a role model. Her journey was proof that success doesn't require compromising your principles. Young women and men, especially those from underrepresented backgrounds, saw in Maya someone who looked like them, who had faced the same doubts and obstacles, and who had triumphed not by playing by someone else's rules, but by staying true to herself. Social media was filled with messages from people who had been inspired by Maya to stand up for themselves in their own lives and careers. Some shared stories of walking away from toxic jobs. Others talked about demanding fair treatment or equal pay. Maya's courage became a ripple that spread far and wide, touching lives in ways she could never have imagined. Maya's company, too, continued to thrive. The outpouring of support translated into new opportunities and partnerships. Investors who valued integrity and vision reached out, eager to work with a leader who had proven her character under pressure. Maya's team, inspired by her example, worked with renewed passion and commitment. They knew they were part of something special, a company that stood for more than just profits, but for the belief that everyone deserves respect. Meanwhile, the billionaire who had refused to shake Maya's hand faced consequences he hadn't anticipated. His reputation, once untouchable, was now tarnished. Stories of his arrogance and lack of respect resurfaced, and people began to question whether his success had come at the expense of others. Some of his business partners distanced themselves, not wanting to be associated with someone whose values were so out of step with the times. The loss of the $2 billion deal was just the beginning. The real cost was the loss of influence, trust, and the chance to be part of something truly great. In interviews and public appearances, Maya was often asked if she regretted her decision. Her answer was always the same: absolutely not. She explained that walking away was not just about her, but about setting an example for her team, her community, and anyone who had ever been made to feel small. She spoke about the importance of knowing your worth and never letting anyone take that away from you. Her words resonated with people everywhere, reminding them that sometimes the most powerful move you can make is to simply walk away. Maya's story became a case study in business schools, a topic of discussion in leadership forums, and a source of inspiration for countless people. It showed that real power doesn't come from money or titles, but from the courage to stand up for what's right. In the end, Maya's legacy was not just the company she built, but the lives she touched and the change she inspired. Her story proved that dignity, respect, and integrity are the true foundations of lasting success. If you found Maya's story inspiring, don't forget to hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories that motivate and empower. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching.